Hey, it's Soul, and welcome, friends, to another episode of Warcraft Weekly, where the race to world first is... Hit the like button and subscribe if you're into risky commitments, and let's start off by talking about the race, which may or may not be over by the time this weekly goes live, so I guess congratulations in advance if there's a winner, and if there is not, boy, do I feel sorry for everyone involved. I want to bring up the subject of endurance and infrastructure in this most recent race to world first because it's kind of fascinating. Here we have top guilds and organizations fueled by sponsors to, put on a show. People are put on location, they're put into hotels, and they're loaned out equipment. Like, this ain't some LAN party with gamers working with what space is given. It's not just a handful of players, but casters and a production crew that help put all of this together. I feel that beyond the back and forth between the fans and the calls for a global reset and of course the etceteras, these people, as well as the competitors of course, deserve a shout out for their incredible work and dedication at putting on a show so we can spam memes and vitriol and other garbage. This, I suppose, is the best that I can offer because this race has been pretty long, right? About 30 years ago or so, at the start of Battle for Azeroth, streaming the race to world first became a thing thanks to Method, who coined the term and attempted to solidify themselves as the top WoW guild, but also the organization that puts on the entire show, featuring numerous guilds, aka the rabble nipping at their feet. Up until now, the mythic raids these shows were built around lasted roughly 2 weeks, not including the time it takes for logistics like travel, lodgings, setup, and teardown. We're now into the third week of Mythic with a chance that there might be a fourth unless... But anyway, the point is that this shows how vulnerable a community event like this is because we as players are left to just assume how long it'll take to finish. An actual marathon has a fixed length, obviously. The race to world first, though, not so much. The players and the people who run this have been doing a great job of staying mostly professional. They're keeping their spirits up, they're keeping us entertained, but the reality is that we've been seeing streams every day since the beginning of March, before the Mythic thing opened, and then we got 14-hour streams since Mythic opened on March 8th. Even with being well-fed and having frequent breaks, this is a lot of capital being spent. It's a mental drain on its players, and it begs the question, is Blizzard doing the right thing? Tuning the race to take this long to speedrun? Now, I want to hear your ideas and your takes on this, but since I'm here, I guess I'll go first and say, nah, Blizzard isn't really in the wrong here. You know how people were worried about that 18-hour head start that North American teams have? The way I see it, it's sort of like a buffer. I'll put up this crappy diagram. If the race finished on, say, a Tuesday, okay, that's bad. That means people will happily bitch for a global reset and we can do the same old song and dance. But as the week goes on, frontrunners are more or less on even ground and that head start diminishes greatly. So if the race did finish this weekend, it'd all be down to which team performed the best. This global reset conversation is probably the most that Blizzard and the WoW team should feel responsible for, but I'm also saying that it's probably not a big enough deal either. It's important to point out that this is first and foremost a community-run event. Blizzard does do its duty to be responsive by applying fixes and retuning in a fair way as the race goes on. However, that's about it. There's a narrative going around that the raid is tuned a bit too hard and the race should have been finished within 2 weeks as expected, that this isn't fair for the people involved, something tiers, something double legendaries. I find that very awkward to hear though, okay, why can't a game designer make a game harder than it was before? But I wonder what these top guilds and organizations are going to do for future races. When these folks get home, they're going to be pretty drained and are going to ask themselves if this approach is sustainable. Is it healthy? Is it affordable? Should these folks have to push back other commitments when they can't be certain how long the race will take? And of course, should Blizzard consider that in their encounter design? This week we wave a goodbye to Josh Allen, aka Lore, the community engagement manager for World of Warcraft, who took that role among others over roughly 9 years. This is a departure that very much caught my attention, and emotionally it affects me more than the likes of Chris Metzen, Mike Morheim, Jeff Kaplan, and Well, all the others. I used to watch and listen to Josh when he was just a content creator for Tank Spots, and now it looks like he's free to do WoW content again if he really wants to. He's one of many who started out as a fan and a player and then became intrinsic to what the world of Warcraft has become, one of the faces of the game even if he wasn't himself a developer. In a way, he inspired me to become a creator myself, to offer what sometimes are more measured takes that consider the feelings of involved parties without letting emotion take over. And speaking of emotion, I'm a bit sad about this one. I feel like WoW is going to be a little bit less without him. Whoever's backfilling has got some pretty big shoes to fill, and I won't envy that person because as soon as we find out who it is, they are going to be instantly hated because, I don't know, Affliction DPS isn't where it should be, and clearly the devs aren't listening. But for my part, I'll ask around and see if I can take the mantle of Survival Guide narrator for nostalgia's sake. Welcome to the World of Warcraft Survival Guide for the 10.0 pre-expansion patch, the Anduin dating simulator. Moving on, I didn't expect any bombshell news to drop this week, seeing as how the only bombshell would have been like, I don't know, if Blizzard had been bought out, which it is. Or they're making a brand new IP, which they are. Or a new Warcraft again, which again they are. Or a new WoW expansion announcement that is expected to happen on the 19th. I thought that it would be a quieter week, but no. Early this week, Blizzard announced that there will be a Season 4 of Shadowlands. Like, what happened, leakers? How'd you miss this one, Anyway, this pretty much kills any hope of a 2022 release and a return to the likes of Mists of Pandaria and Warlords of Draenor with a wait so long an additional PvP season was needed. Since seasons are more than that these days, it looks like raids and dungeons will also get the season treatment, with an entirely different Mythic Plus dungeon rotation, and all raids will have what they call a progenitor-themed affix system to infuse some new mechanical twist to the Shadowlands raids. This is being sold as, quote, what a season of WoW might include, so this might be something we see not just in the final season of an expansion, but any season, making this whole venture an experiment to see what works, and so far, I'm at least very excited to learn more. Note that I'm not saying that this is good or bad. In an earlier video, I shared my concerns for solo and more casual players who don't take part in the big three. Short summary, there's a lot the WoW team can do to keep all players engaged in current content, be it for item level or collections or just plain fun. But here at least, I'll keep my attention on what was announced. I think it's smart and reasonable to keep the 3 Shadowlands raids relevant in this case. I mean, after all, they're current. They're designed around Shadowlands features. Making the Throne of Thunder more current would be pretty cool, I gotta admit. I just think the WoW team is working on practicing with these raids first. It'll be nice to change things up and walk into Castle Nathria with double legendaries and tier sets while still feeling challenged. My hope is that these progenitor affixes, or whatever they are not going to be like Mythic Plus affixes that are targeted towards just increasing challenge as opposed to, making things more fun and interesting. An okay example would be the seasonal affixes from Mythic Plus this expansion. Like I said, it makes encounters a bit more interesting, not exactly harder, but interesting. But I do have specific hopes and dreams for these revitalized raids. Like, first, let's get rid of the trash, alright? We've been there, we've done that, we dealt with that for months. Like, just get rid of the trash in these specific modes. Spawn NPCs near the boss rooms for quick releases and repairs, or for the Sanctum of Domination specifically, which feature those domination shards. Either disable them completely in this mode so people don't have to stress over farming them, or enable them completely with a simple toggle via NPC. Just let us play with them at this point. It's way too early to talk about too much more on that, so let's look at the team's selection of Mythic Plus dungeons. I do find it odd that it seems like Season 4 will effectively retire the 9.0 Shadowlands dungeons from the pool, leaving Tazavesh as the only one left standing. Meanwhile, Karazhan and Mechagon are in, I guess, a stable enough state to enable whatever Mythic Plus shenanigans that they're planning. Maybe this is Blizzard trying to get away from the Covenant buffs, I'm not sure. And also, without a direct teleport, some of these dungeons will be a small pain in the ass to get to. Of course, not retiring the 9.0 dungeons would mean Season 4 Keymaster would need what, like a rating of 4,000 or so? I'm not sure exactly how much, but it seems like a bit too much. What has me most curious though is that 2 of the 8 dungeons that are coming in Season 4 will be from Warlords of Draenor, which did have challenge modes. With this, it sets the precedent that the team is willing to add keystones to any of the Warlords dungeons, as well as the impression that the same could be done for Mists of Pandaria dungeons, which also had a challenge mode. In case you didn't know, the 2 dungeons are up for a vote, with the current frontrunners being Grimrail Depot, followed by Iron Dogs. And this trend is shared among both the Americas and the European regions, but really? Iron Dogs? I guess. That wasn't all this week though. We got our first look at patch 9.2.5, and it's as I both hoped and feared. There is actual content. Now it does sound weird to say ill content, like what are you talking about? But I did say a bunch of times earlier that I was hoping 9.2.5 was just a systems patch, and the team was steamrolling 120% towards a 10.0 launch this year. Since that's clearly not going to happen, well, might as well make this 0.5 patch feel a bit more proper. So in this first build, we've seen a spattering of new quest lines and cosmetics, like an Antora set recolor themed after the Blood Knights, Dark Iron Dwarf mounts and transmog, and some story bits that I'm not going to spoil here, of course, but they could be hints of where the next expansion will take us. And by the way, every leak out in the wild is super fake. Also found on the PTR, the Creation Catalyst, which is sort of testable. Gear bought from Sandwarden tokens can be turned into tier set pieces. Gasp. I made sure to test this before the recording to make sure that it's still at least around as of this build. Before this build though, I haven't checked on this, so for all I knew, this change was on the PTR for a while and nobody knew about it. So there is a chance that this is not just a 9.2.5 feature, but it's possible to do this as soon as the Creation Catalyst is available in a few weeks. So did Blizzard buckle under the weight of our bitching? Maybe. We'll just have to see or wait for official confirmation. And 9.2.5 has fallen up on all sorts of quick and easy hotfixes, like being able to give your flux for enough soul ash and cinders to make a rank 7 legendary. It just needs honored rep with the enlightened. There's more ash and cinders that are dropping from Torghast for those who don't care about reputation. The mage tower is going to be up permanently starting next week, so you can polish up those characters or start farming those mats so we can sell those for ridiculous gold. All sorts of great changes that really should have been there from the start, but you know what? I'll take it. Dude, give me that copium flavored coffee. Go ahead and call Blizzard desperate for subs. Fine by me. If this is what we get, I like desperate Blizzard. I like responsive and them being agile enough to make these changes. I will happily take that because, you know, next week is the conclusion of the Shadowlands story and the release of the Sylvanas book, and all of this might be immediately washed away with the next news cycle. Like, isn't the internet just great? And that's the show. So, Anduin's dead. Yeah. As usual, I want to make my perspective clear. I, as raid leader, I play semi-blind, as in I don't try understanding abilities until I've at least seen them or, you know, experienced them once or died to them once or twice. I do let add-ons like deadly boss mods and bigwigs identify timers, but when it comes to tactics, I'm sort of like, you know, I sort of let the encounter design eventually map out the strategy. It's how I have fun. From that sort of perspective, this raid, even on just normal difficulty, has been some of the most banger encounters that I've seen in World of Warcraft, no matter the difficulty. Now, Vigilant Guardian and Skolex, yeah, you know, they're a little bit boring on normal, they're not so great. Pantheon, it seems like it'll be a lot more challenging on Heroic, but the other fights have been really interesting, while Anduin has been, well, really, really good. I feel like teams like mine happen to be the target audience that the WoW team tries to hit. Folks on my team are taking personal responsibility. Raid cooldowns are being planned out. There's extra farming going on outside of the raid, but of course we're also steadily obtaining tier. We just got double legendaries, and the fights are still pretty insane when you compare Anduin to most raid encounters in the past. Now obviously not everyone shares in my satisfaction. Not everyone enjoys parts of the game that I do or in the same way. I just want to demonstrate one example of a gamer, me, who's pretty content while still wanting things to be better. whether it's for me or my team or you folks at home and elsewhere. So I want to thank everyone who's joined me this week as I shared news and reactions and wild takes and super fake leaks. To the folks on Twitch who keep the stream afloat even though I keep missing out on squats, sorry about that, but I'm glad to have you. To the patrons, including the likes of Justin and Amanda and Matt and Sam, I am incredibly grateful. And to you, viewer, thanks for making it to the end and for liking the video and for subscribing to the channel, because I know you did. As always, you can join me Tuesdays through Thursdays at 8:30 a.m. for some coffee and chatting and other stupid stuff. And I forgot to say Pacific time, but you know what I mean. I might take one day off from stream this week to read the Sylvanas book and then share some thoughts and reactions. But otherwise, I will see you next week for the reminder. Until then, stay safe, stay healthy, and stay breezy.
Run.
Coming off my corpse.
Special coming.
Heal soul.
It's coming off my. She might be able to get two.
Oh
Yeah!
Fuck yeah.
Twofer was clutch, man.
Nice, dude.
Now like
Heal
Tyrion,
soul.
do things.
Watch your
naturally.
step.
Just think of the content.
Nah, you got wings.
Oh,
You can't die with wings, man.
the video of you doing 10%.
I know.
Yes.
I didn't include that in your video, so